As already mentioned, the Chandrakirti, I think one of the great philosopher as well as practitioner. And like Nagarjuna, this person no longer, at least you see, as a human being, 100-year maximum. So then they are writing the remain 1,000 years. So the Chandrakirti's text one of the importance of text. So, as I already mentioned, I myself memorize from childhood. So now, I always say mentioning this country, India, I think most the thinkers, philosophers produce in this country. So, I usually used to describe 17 masters of Nalanda. Their brain, I think, very sharp, wonderful. So now, in humanity in general, and particularly ancient Indian masters writing as a sort of also the secular basis, as a sort of academic subject and study, and now today combined with modern science. According to my own experience, last now few decades, serious discussion with scientists, as I already mentioned, because you see our thinking is analytical thinking, analyze, reason, not faith, not believe, just investigation. So the science, modern science also, you see, investigation. So that not only also the benefit after our death, since we believe, you see, rebirth, life after life. So in that rebirth theory, the Hindus believe Atma is very useful. Beside this body, this Atma. So body, just one life. Atma, you see, beginningless. Life after life. Go like that. So therefore, study investigation is really very, very helpful So ancient Indian master, you see, they wrote this wonderful book. Now we are in 21st century. Still, these books are very relevant. These books, you see, talking about human mind, human emotion, how to develop or say peace of mind. And whenever we face some problem, through analytical meditation, analyze, it's very useful, very useful. So, as I mentioned, secular way, not religion, but secular way as an academic subject. So the ancient Indian knowledge, as I already mentioned, in India, now in academic field, a study about ancient Indian masters' writing as a sort of text for academic subject about mind, about emotion, and about reality. So, I feel our discussion, a small contribution regarding, introduce about ancient Indian masters' thinking. Although my knowledge compare top scholar, then my knowledge very limited. But in front of you, my knowledge quite useful. So one story. 그중에 러송에 기시 빈비사지 루주. during third Dalai Lama, you see, from time to time, the top scholars, you see, carry debate. And occasionally, Dalai Lama himself used to observe. So one old scholar, Kishi Pimbin, so he sort of said at the debate, you see, his answer not very good. So afterward, when third Dalai Lama met him, Dalai Lama, you see, told him, "Oh, you scholar, but not that much sort of knowledge." Dalai Lama mentioned. Then his answer is, "Oh, doesn't matter. You see, my examination before you were born." So old monk, old scholar, so that's quite natural. So I also can say my mind, my knowledge, not as fresh as those young scholars. I can say I am now old scholar. One my advantage is I had opportunity meeting with scientists and also you see different scholars in different field and different sort of leaders, scholars. So that quite useful for me. So occasionally when I visit our monastic institution, occasionally I mention these things. And then since I very much attracted about science, modern science, so in our monastic institution, they should pay more attention about modern science. As a result, Loseling College, they already develop, or say some kind of laboratory about science. So and in our examination, final examination, according individual sort of interest, we should include modern science. So in any way, as I mentioned earlier, the India's ancient thought is very relevant to today's world. Today's world, full of problem due to emotion. In such sort of period, the ancient Indian knowledge how to keep peace of mind, not through prayer, but through analyze. So now another important Indian master, Chandrakirti. Now here, I already discussed about the importance of understanding about shunyata. I already sort of mentioned. Now here, the Buddhist practitioner, wisdom side, analyze about shunyata. The method side, dana, shila, and
Shanta.
In any way, you see, jimba, sudrim, sava, sundu, something, shira.
Giving, morality,
These
patience,
ubaya
and so
side,
forth.
method side, should combine. So now, the text, you see, mention, firstly, tesetela zosa changshu gyu tangpu jimbajin labanyo. First, you see mentioning about jimbas
Giving.
kasa
Giving.
giving.
So verse number 9.
So
Chapter 1.
the giving, you see, firstly, you see those people who really are the difficult life, poor people, you see, give them it is
Material.
very useful. And also, you see, in order to make genuine friendship giving good. Now, today's world, there are a number of sort of organizations. For example, United Nations is a certain sort of organization. Always look after poor people. And particularly, you see, those people who really are facing danger of starvation. Like this, you see, charity, very useful. So now today's world, there are, you see, huge gap rich and poor. So poor people also are brothers, sisters, and they also important part of our society. So the richer people, long run, their own interest to look after these poor people. So as a cherishing,
Charity.
very important. the first chapter, you see, mentioning about, you see, the charity.
The practice of giving.
And he used some reasons. The charity, not like some other sort of practice, karuna or altruism. These, some people who too much sort of selfish thinking, self-interest, may be difficult to practice. But cherishing, charity, even such people can practice, it mentioned. Then, when you practice charity, then eventually, when you see those poor people and the difficult people, then you get some lesson, more sense of concern. That is eventually karuna, I say compassion, and then gradually sort of willingness to help them through practical way. That is why I mentioned this. Then, while you sort of committed helping poor people, then gradually, you see, you gain more deeper experiences. In first sort of chapter, first lesson, you see, or chapter mentioned that. Then second, the discipline, shila. Usually, you see, what's say? That time also, practice of shila, while you sort of committed giving, helping poor people, without sort of harming them or self-centered attitude. If your sort of motivation, self-centered, sort of name or something, or exploit other, that's not, how to say, the spiritual way to give. So here you should have as a complete sort of as concern about their well-being, not your own sort of fame or give something, then you get some more. Not that way, not like business, but simply with warm heart, because of the warm heart, and give them. Then that, so practice of shila. So now he mentioned the practice of shila for this life. Also, you see, get more friend, more people truly respect you or love you. Then future life practice as a result of practice of shila. There's guarantee on next life or good life. So the method side now, cherishing, charity, that's very important. Then third chapter, the patience. While we practice these things, you see, there are also the obstacles. Sometimes you may feel really tired. So here you need patience. So it mentioned the patient, very important. It mentioned even you see someone who really want to harm you and cutting your body, even then you should keep patience or compassion towards that person. As I briefly mentioned, your troublemaker, your enemy, is best teacher of practice of patience. Then it mentioned, you say, what is the benefit, practice of patience? It mentioned it's quite as a logical approach. If someone is harming you and you develop some kind of anger, you see, that won't help to to remove all those
Provocations.
harming from other, which already done. You see, your anger won't help to sort of disappear what really happened. Then, you see, the difficult situation, then you develop anger, that problem continuously remain and even increasing. So those people who create problem for you, then forgiveness, don't keep, you see, ill feeling. Then the past already now done. Now, because that kind of practice no longer future now continuous problem. It mentioned that.
Verse number 4. Verse number 4.
And then further is mentioned.
Chapter 3, verse number 4. This is if you respond with vengeance when someone harms you, does your bitterness reverse what was already done?
This is quite sort of use common sense now here. The miduk sus tamba member this.
Verse number 7.
Anger develop, then your face become ugly. Angry face, nobody like, even animal don't like. So anger, you see, develop very ugly face. Angry face, always you see, not nice. So miduk susu chijing.
So this wrath disfigures your face and leads you
Eventually, people consider,
to what
that
is
awful,
unwholesome.
that person awful, always angry. So, tamba member tri.
It robs your mind
And then one
of
important
the
thing is,
judgment
when your
of what
mind
is right and wrong.
dominated by anger, then the best part of our brain judging which is right, which is wrong, and short-term interest, long-term interest, that part of sort of brain no longer has a function. If your main mind too much for anger, then these best part of our brain cannot function properly. Then anger,
So mind,
you say
judgment
harming
of what is
other,
right and wrong.
result, within this life, you may get some problem or too much anger, you see, you may get some illness, physical health also, you see, much ruined by anger. Because you see, peace of mind, very positive effect for body. So anger is one of the most powerful destroyer of peace of mind. So eventually that also, you see, ruined our physical condition. Then the opposite, patience, tolerance. Is firstly your physical sort of appearance, calm, peace, smiling. If enemy criticize you, you still remain smiling. Then eventually the enemy also then have to second thought. So some violence, counter-violence, endless. So,
But forbearance brings qualities opposite to those just described. Forbearance makes you attractive and dear to the sublime ones.
Patience or tolerance. Immediately, also you see your face remain calm, smile, friendly face.
So we're on verse number 8.
And as a result of that action, that mental action, and sometimes including verbal action, physical action, out of patience, you see, really create very positive karma. That affect our next life also, you see, sort of beautiful sort of body and a wonderful sort of person like that. Because, you see, karmic link. Karma here now, I think they something get used, then marbe. Oh, you see, then eventually, automatically, you see that come. So this life, practice that, its effect even goes next life. So the practice of patience is not only just a religious matter, but as at a practical level, as a human being, the practice of patience is very, very useful, very important. Then today's world, for global peace, also you see patience, very important. And particularly, as I mentioned earlier, you see, without anger, our brain, which can judge temporary sort of benefit, long-run benefit, then clearly sort of can analyze. Your mind dominated anger, fear, then these best part of human brain cannot function properly. So most of these sort of troublemaker on this planet, they themselves want happy life. But because of destructive emotion, they create some problem, firstly, within their own community. Then those powerful people, even you see the big community or big whole nation, and therefore, you see, the patience, very important. Peace of mind is very important. It mentioned that. So, as a practitioner, so through analyze what is the value of patience, what is the harmfulness of anger, then through that way you try to practice of patience and try to reduce anger.
So verse number 9, chapter 3, verse number 9 says that.
Now third, umonju sim kiba sumbasche. So charity sakasa, charity, and then
morality,
patience, these you see the method side of practice, and ultimately these produce Buddha's body. It mentioned that Sanja Suki Danya Kwe Yu.
verse number 12,
Then third,
chapter
fourth,
3,
fourth,
last
not much.
line.
And then the how's it? Zundu kasa, zundu sna. Ka kasa.
Virya.
Zundu.
Virya in Sanskrit, and
Tireless.
joyous effort. Joyous effort.
Ka.
Effort. Effort. Joyous effort.
No matter how difficult it is, but determined to carry that work continuously. As a Buddhist practitioner, even thousands, eons, I will carry this work. So that kind of determination. So now here mentioned that Lexakel Khasa,
Virya.
or Dhana Paramita, Shila Paramita,
Shanda Paramita. Chanda Paramita.
Bhya Paramita. So
Virya Paramita.
all also the positive sort of also the mental development is not easily come through effort. So your tireless effort is very important. It mentioned that. Then, fifth,
Chapter 5. The fifth ground, hard to conquer. This great one on the
someday,
ground of hard to conquer, and so forth.
single-pointed meditation. If you practice these Dana Paramita, Shila Paramita, Chindi Paramita,
Virya Paramita.
then the Bhya Paramita,
And
since you see all the obstacle of determination reduce, then your determination can willpower remain. Remain and even increase.
cannot be defeated even by the entire host of Maras.
More sins, you see, anger and these reduce. So this meditation, single-pointed meditation, automatically come.
So excelling in meditative absorption and in the truth of the wise, he gains mastery and refined
fifth.
understanding as well.
No, sixth. Now this most difficult part of the Madhyamika Avatara's text. Now here, it mentioned people, blind group of people, blind, and one person who have eyesight. Then you see that person have special responsibility to look after these blind people. We are same human being. We all have same desire to achieve a happy life. Now here happiness mainly mental level. So therefore, the ignorant people, as a blind people, you see, in order to help them, firstly, you yourself, you see, have fuller knowledge how to build happy life. So, cholong didn't you
On directly facing,
then
there is the manifest.
thing
He abides in the mind of
Shiro
meditative
never go
equipoise
Chizo
and
Lama
turns
Chogun
through
Delado
attributes of the
Mingdi Kimu
perfect.
Chigin Daba Ye Yudu Chiba Tishin Drian
Perfect Buddhahood, this bodhisattva who sees the truth of
Yen
dependent
Do.
origination, attains true cessation
Now
by
today's,
dwelling in wisdom. And
for
in the
example,
next
today's
verse
world,
as well. On
we
page 7,
brothers, sisters, we all want happiness, do not want suffering. However, you see, as I already mentioned, you see, we believe, particularly the materialistic life, happiness comes from outside, seeking from outside. That's totally wrong. Happiness within ourselves. So now, knowledge, how to develop inner peace and how to keep inner peace and share with more people. Here mentioned blind people. Same desire,
verse number
same
3.
right, but do not know how to keep inner peace. So it mentioned that.
Verse number 2, just as a single man with eye can easily lead a group of blind men on their desired destination,
Now
here
in
too
order to-
intelligence leads the star, slightest virtue, and guides them to
Study
conquer a
or
state.
in order to know the ultimate reality. Now, many Indian masters, you see, investigate, you see, about reality. So within Nalanda tradition, Buddhist school of thought, Vibhashik, Sodantik, Chitta Mantra, and Madhyamika, 4 major school of thought. Then the Chitta Mantra, you see, quite similar, the way to investigate what is the external thing. Now, quantum physics, similar, analyze, then nothing you can find. So finally, everything depends on mental projection. So that's quite similar, the Chitta Mantra's sort of philosophical view. Analyze, then nothing independent existence. So then the Chitta Mantra still believe things should be objectively exist. So therefore, with that belief, with that concept and investigate, you can't find, then their conclusion is only mind. Mind creates these things. The mind is independent. So that Chitta Mantra, you see, mentioned that. Then Madhyamika, particularly Prasangika Madhyamika, like the Chandrakirti. You see, they clearly sort of analyze things. If you analyze, nothing you can find. So, as I think yesterday already mentioned, so then if you analyze objectively, nothing you can find. So then the things, the very nature of existence is mere designation. So that's Madhyamika, and within Madhyamika, Prasangika, and Kasa Ranjuba Kasa.
Svatantrikas.
Ranjuba.
Svatantrikas.
Tenjuba. Prasangika she. Tenjuba.
Svatantrikas Madhyamakas.
So, those ancient Indian masters, they really fully utilize human intelligence, then thinking. Within their own, also the circle, you see, there are different views and to criticize each other. Now here, the Chandrakirti also is mentioned at the end. 그래서 tinyi shesin samu jigrun deni ngongom nili gyoye ngebo togyur deni sanje shen shenji tusu chumi gyurus.
Towards the end of Madhyamaka Avatara, Master Chandrakirti says that even if someone may be very learned, this profound emptiness, according to the Master Nagarjuna's tradition, cannot be understood by others. So Chandrakirti in his auto-commentary mentions that the masters such as Asanga and Vasubandhu and so forth, if have not understood the true reality of how things are, that they have abandoned the understanding of the truth, ultimate truth. So Asanga and so forth, so for the reason that things are dependently originated, that they do not have any independent objective existence, which means that things exist in dependence on other factors and that they do not exist in and of themselves. So these understandings have not been within the purview of the understanding of masters like Vasubandhu and so forth. And so the Indian masters have, of course, various philosophical understandings of how things actually exist. And as Master Dharmakirti says that most of the people are more or less passionate about mundane things and ordinary things, and therefore will not understand and I do not therefore have any intention for benefiting such people, and so though I do not have this intention to benefit them, and in order to acquaint my mind with this tradition or the philosophical ideas, I write this text. This is what Dharmakirti says in his Brahmana Vartika Karika. So these great masters have used their human intelligence to the utmost and have done this kind of analysis and deep analysis into the nature of things. Today we have the scientists. Of course, they can explain and describe what is obvious about the matter. Whereas the scientists have not yet developed any means to understand the mind and also what is known as the hidden phenomena. So when it comes to talking about psychology, the modern science still is at a very rudimentary level, like a beginner level. Therefore, when it comes to psychology, the understanding of emotions and mind, we have the Indian traditions which have done so much analysis into the workings of human mind. And therefore, this modern science, which focuses on matter and material things, and Buddhism and Indian tradition, which focuses on the mind, can go together, should go together. So the Indian tradition of using logic and analysis into to delve into the nature of things is amazing, wonderful. So, of course, in the past, there was such a tradition, very profound tradition. But since Nalanda monastic institution was destroyed, this tradition also went out of existence in India. So, these knowledge that we have, that has come down to us from the Nalanda tradition, which spread to China, of course, but the more importantly, they have been kept by the Tibetans and in Mongolia. And therefore, through the threefold process of learning, reflection and meditation, we should keep up with this tradition, preserve this tradition. And so today, this tradition is very important to help our mind. And even as academic subject, we should be. So verse number 3, chapter 6 says, one who has realized the utterly profound truth through scripture and through reasoning as well as was then noble Nagarjuna. So I'll expound here his tradition as it appears in his treatises. And so when we talk about emptiness, what we are saying is that things do exist different from how they appear to us. And when you understand that, there is some kind of enthusiasm to pursue such knowledge. So verse number 3 down. So when you grow interest in the understanding of emptiness, even the scientists would have this interest, would grow interest in understanding what emptiness is about. And so it says that for such beings who have the interest and have the karmic imprint for this. So verse number 5, 6, 7, chapter 6, page 7. So verse number 7 finished. So when we talk about emptiness, there's some interest. And also one becomes one tends to grow admiration for studying about emptiness. There are signs which indicate that such person, some people have this kind of imprint for emptiness, such as saying that the person would shed tears and the body, the hair on one's body is standing on end, and so forth, that are mentioned in this text.
Discussion. Marbe, discussion about. Yes.
Hello, Your Holiness. Good morning. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for this wonderful teaching on Madhyamika Avtara and accepting our request. There are 5 questions today from all over. The first question is mine. I'm Anita from Goa. My question is to posit that conventional phenomena exist, one must show that they are certified by a valid cognizer, not mere ignorance. So, then if Prasangika says that all valid cognizers except the non-dual wisdom of emptiness is mistaken, then what can certify conventional phenomena?
That is a very important point. Now, the Prasangika or Madhyamika philosopher, and particularly Prasangika, you say nothing objectively sort of exists. So then, what is sort of demarcation? Something exists or something not exist. Both from objectively, nothing. Right thing also is not there. So now, it mentioned the Madhyamika Avatara Pumbud Nambur Magda Naza Chawan Jinshida Sa Sham Sham de Yori.
It talks about the vase and so forth. And it says the things do not exist in the sevenfold, when you do the sevenfold reasoning or analysis, but they exist in another way, that is the worldly convention, by way of worldly convention. So if you try to search for the identity of things in and themselves, you will not find anything that you can pinpoint as being this or that. And similarly, it is the case with Tathagata, as it is the analysis is done in Madhyamaka Karika by Nagarjuna, where he says the Tathagata is not one with the aggregates, nor separate from it, and so forth. So without being contented with the appearance, the mere appearance of the things, and if you try to search for the real identity of the thing in itself, you will not be able to find anything that you can pinpoint at being this or that. But how do things exist? By way of worldly convention. So with regard to the analysis done by Master Nagarjuna in chapter 22 of Mula Madhyamaka Karika, what is Tathagata? And when you actually take yourself as the object of analysis, where am I? You can say, I am my body, my mind, and so forth. And accordingly, of course, these do function, these do have this functionality. Whereas if you try to search for the identity of things and self, you cannot find anything being this or that. So things do exist by way of dependence on other factors. And the fact that they do not have any existence in and of themselves, when we do critical analysis into them, then what you can conclude is say that the things do exist by way of convention. And so Master Tsongkhapa says that this is the most difficult point in the Madhyamaka view, which means that when having rejected any objective independent existence in things, what you are left with is the mere designation, mere nominality of the thing. And that is the most difficult. And so when you feel moved, having thought, given thoughts to how things are empty of any inherent existence, then you'll be able to see that the point that is made, which says that things are designated merely, designated nominally. So when you have a very good idea of how things do not have any essential existence in and of themselves, then you'll be able to understand how things are merely nominally designated. Otherwise, like the Savatantrika Madhyamakas, if you would have to say things do have some objective existence. So since things do not have any objective existence, if you actually assert any objective existence, then what you would end up with is the four logical absurdities or fallacies that Chandrakirti points out in where it says the Arya being's meditative absorption on emptiness would be the destroyer of phenomena, and that it would be wrong to teach that things lack ultimate existence, and so forth. And so, of course, when it comes to selflessness, and even the Sotantrikas also do explain it, and also Chittamatras. And then Savatantrika Madhyamakas also do explain it very in great way and extensively, I mean strongly. But because these other schools, the proponents of other schools, these schools do still hold on to some objective existence, then they always have to point to something being the identity of things. Whereas the Pasankika Madhyamakas, they say that things are merely designated, and therefore the designated object cannot be found from within the object, the basis for the designation of that object at all.
Next.
Thank you. The next question is from Professor Pooja Dabral from Sikkim, Gangtok.
Nalanda, hello. Nalanda, His Holiness. My question is, how do cognitive obscurations prevent us from seeing all phenomena simultaneously? Thank you.
Yes.
Your questions are very good. So, cognitive obscuration, when we talk about this, we also come across the mention of the perception of the two truths as being distinct in identity. So if you gain a good understanding of dependent origination, dependent arising, as I said yesterday, then by dependence, we do not deny the suchness. With origination, we do not deny, we actually accept the conventionality of things. So when you understand dependent origination well, what it says is that things exist by way of their dependence on other conditions and other factors, and there's apart from that they cannot exist. And so when we talk about emptiness, we say that we take an object and say that that basis, the object itself, is empty. And so that form is, therefore in the Sahasutta it says form is emptiness, emptiness is form, and form is not other than emptiness, and emptiness too is not other than form. So these two, form and its emptiness, are of the same identity or nature, whereas whereas they are distinct conceptually, or by isolate, as it is called, their distinctness. So, until you become a Buddha, there is always this appearance of things having some kind of objective, independent, true existence. And so, until you reach Buddhahood, you will not be able to see both the truths simultaneously, directly. So until then, except for the meditative absorption of emptiness along the path, there's always this appearance of a duality, the two truths being distinct appears to you. So when you become a Buddha, though there is the appearance of the objects themselves, yet you also see their emptiness directly. So the 10th ground bodhisattva, while not in meditative absorption on full meditative absorption on emptiness, there still is the appearance of true existence to its cognition, to its mind, to his or her mind. So that is the cognitive obscuration, due to cognitive obscuration. So when that bodhisattva on the 10th ground finally stays in absorption on total absorption on emptiness, then that appearance also stops.
From Kunsang from Sikkim.
Tashidile, Holiness. My question is, since the efficacy of dependent origination so well accounts for the functionality of all conventional phenomena, how do we see this efficacy of dependent origination is also mere mental imputation? Holiness.
So as I said earlier, when you try to analyze and try to search for the identity of things, you cannot find anything as being this or that. But from our experience, we cannot deny their existence at all. And therefore, how do they exist? That they exist by way of convention, worldly convention. There is no reason for you to prove that things do have some objective existence, whereas Savatantrika Madhyamakas do assert such an existence. And also, the Chidamatras, while rejecting externality of things, they still hold on to the view that assert that the mind has some true existence. And so, until you are able to reject any objective existence in things, you still have problem saying things are merely designated by name and our concepts. And so, the Prasankika Madhyamakas saying that things are nominally existent and that they are merely designated. So this should be, you should gain insight into after having rejected the object to be negated in establishing emptiness. There's no other reasoning that you have to use other than being able to come to that conclusion.
From Gurgaon, Delhi.
Tashidilek, His Holiness. My question, the background of my question is, before the rejection of selfness of phenomena in the Acharya Chandrakirti's book, in the commentary by Lama Tsongkhapa, it mentions a summary reasoning how to reject objective existence. In that summary reasoning, it mentions that the parts and wholes appear as distinct entities. Now, my question is, how do they appear as distinct entities? Because to my eye consciousness, which is a direct perceiver, they do look like the same entity. And if they look at distinct entities to a mental consciousness, how does that lead to the conclusion that things are illusion-like? Thank you very much.
So with regard to whole and its parts, they are not posited after having done analysis into how things exist. Even in quantum physics, for example, the external things are made up of their particles, subatomic particles, and so forth. And this consciousness also is made up of these streams of consciousness or moments of consciousness. And so, there is nothing which is without any part. There is nothing which is partless object. Whereas the non-Buddhist tradition do assert that of a prakriti which is separate from the evolutes. So of course we can talk about the universals and their particulars. So these are also asserted on the basis of our conventions. And also the cause and effects. And definitum and definition. So in our texts, there's mention of object of knowledge, which is a universal object. And then within under that, there are two categories, those of the compounded and uncompounded phenomena. And then within the compounded phenomena also, there are three and so forth. So, and then when we talk about mind or psychology, there are mentions of the primary mind and mental factors. The mental factors are 51 in number, 5 of omnipresent factors and so forth. So we do not actually, when we mention these, there's not mention of emptiness as such. So conventionally, we can talk about these things, such as the 6 realms of existence, sentient beings, and higher realm and the unfortunate realms of sentient beings, and so forth. So these are not posited or asserted on the basis of analyzing into the nature of things. So Yonde Rinpoche clarified the question about the parts and its the part and whole and its parts appear distinct entities to our perception, visual perception, for example. But the question is when I see a person and her parts do not appear as distinct entities, I'm also confused, he only says. So the whole and its parts, and the property and its object, the quality, the object and its quality, and so forth. So of course, in the object itself, of course, we may be able to talk about the object and its quality, but when it goes to the subtler objects, like the subtle particles, atomic particles or subatomic particles, I mean, they still do have parts, and it's the whole and its parts. And also, it is the case same with regard to consciousness. And so whatever exists is necessarily with parts. They do exist with parts or as a whole. So a whole and its parts are mutually dependent. A whole is dependent on its parts, and parts are dependent on the whole. So just as cause and effect are mutually dependent, without there being a product or an effect, you cannot talk about a cause. And without there being a cause, you cannot talk about a product or a result or effect. And so in this way, things are dependent, mutually dependent.
Holiness is from Rimpi Jindal from Gurgaon, Delhi.
Good morning, Your Holiness.
My question is related to when we are meditating on emptiness of self. So first we realize the space like meditation, then we realize the illusion like emptiness. Hello? Illusion like emptiness. And then while we are realizing the illusion like emptiness, we are also able to see this conventional truth. So, however, this is not possible because only Buddha can see both the things together. So my confusion is that whatever we are realizing, is this really the illusion like emptiness, or we are experiencing something else? Thank you so much.
So
the space like meditation and the illusion like meditation. So space like meditation. When you have a space like an experience of emptiness, the object does not appear, but only emptiness appears to your mind. Whereas when you come out of the meditation, if your experience is good with regard to emptiness, then when you see the varieties of things, the diversity of things, then you should be able to actually see them as illusion-like. So as I mentioned, the three processes of study, reflection, and meditation, the understanding is based on these three. You may take the example of yourself. Of course, you will be able to confirm that through your experience that I do not exist the way I appear to my mind, but so during the process of study and this will happen, of course, you will be able to say, I do not exist independently or objectively, but that I'm not non-existent, that I do exist. And then you go on to the next stage of reflection. You will be able to have some kind of a strong conviction through your analysis. And then you move on to meditative state on emptiness. And so, having meditated on emptiness in your meditation, single-pointed meditation, then when you come out of that meditation, in the post-meditation session, because of the experience of emptiness during the meditative session, everything that appears to you at the post-meditation session appears as illusion-like. So the cognition of emptiness is a cognition of the ultimate reality, and the illusion-like cognition of illusion-like things is a illusion of the perception or cognition of conventionality. So with regard to emptiness, you have to posit it in relation to an object, which is a basis on which you establish emptiness, or basis for establishing emptiness. So, because you are talking about dependent origination of things, and therefore there must be some object which you establish to be empty of inherent existence. And therefore, since there is an object and it arises or is established by way of dependence, and therefore you can say that it's empty of inherent existence. So maybe with regard to eliminating the appearance of things having some kind of an inherent existence, or the appearance of may come through some tantric practice. So having gone through the dissolution process, you come to the stage of what is known as the three visions of whitish appearance and so forth. And so at that point, the different appearances of things dissolve. And then finally, all these different dualistic appearances dissolve, and then you arise from the meditative state into a Buddha's mind.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Your Holiness. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Holiness, for this wonderful, wonderful teaching today. This was our absolutely last question. Thank you. Ruchila, Dhanyavad.
도대체 다 next 가
It's
오 okay then one last question now.
Tashidale, His Holiness. My question is related to Prasangika. Prasangika says that everything exists on just mere imputation. So if we say that everything exists with mere imputation, but with a valid basis. So when we say valid basis, to me, it seems there is something coming from the object side. So how do I resolve this contradiction? That, if I say 100% from the subject, it seems to me there is no valid basis. But if I say from the valid basis, it seems there is a contradiction that's something from the object side.
가서 가. 그 단위에도 변은 최신 여버디
So the object which exists is verified through our experience. And there's no other way we can talk about how things exist. And when I get up and take a walk, for example, I reflect on this. Not one with the aggregates, not separate from it, not in it, neither that is in it. I do not possess aggregates. Who am I? Or what am I? So what moves is my body, and I have the motivation to move my body. Where is the where is the I now? So if you take from the top of my head down to the toes, that's my body, not me. And all the different kinds of thoughts, virtuous, non-virtuous, and so forth. These different thoughts are parts of my mind and not me. Is it? Are they? So where is the I? So when you do this kind of analysis of yourself as the body within the body and the mind and so forth, you cannot find. And when I see that I do not exist within this body and the mind complex, I have to sometimes touch my hand. And so when you do this kind of critical analysis, you don't find yourself. But I can say I do exist. I move, I do things. And so conventionally, there's no denying of my existence. Whereas you cannot reason out I exist because of this and that quality of body and so forth. So when you search for your identity, you cannot find yourself, neither the Buddha nor anybody else. So without doing any critical analysis into how things exist, you still can feel contented with the convention that through the convention, I do exist, you do exist. I can say I do exist because I'm a bhikshu, but is my body or mind, my speech, me? No. So when you dissect yourself into the body, speech, and mind, you cannot pinpoint the I or the self. So by way of the worldly convention, I do exist without doing any kind of critical, ultimate analysis into me.
One more question that has come from Ladakh, Your Holiness. Good morning, Your Holiness. Amid coronavirus pandemic and heightened tension along the line of control between the Indian Army and Chinese Army, how can we resolve the issues peacefully and amicably through compassion and love? It's a student from Ladakh.
가사. 가. 가래. Yes.
So the pandemic you cannot resolve through maybe compassion or love. But you should not feel discouraged when you suffer. So you should not be stunned by it. So nothing can work if you do that. So if you feel discouraged, then physically you may also, the virus, the antibodies of the immune system. So if you feel totally discouraged and demoralized, then immune system will also weaken. Otherwise, if you don't remain discouraged and demoralized, I mean, these can be strengthened. And so that can also be related to the pandemic in this way. So by meditating on emptiness, can you get rid of the pandemic? I think it's difficult. So the difference lies in our thoughts. Buddha Shakyamuni himself did take medicine. It is said that Devadatta competed with the Buddha to take medicine. So there is a physical condition and a mental condition, which are, of course, definitely related. The more calm, peaceful, and less anxiety you are, and finally, self-cherishing attitude is the source of our fears. So as I pray, as long as space endures, and so forth, and Master Chandideva says that may I be the varieties of sustenance for a multitude of beings, like those of the great elements of earth and also like those of the space. And so if you whip up your courage to, when you face difficulties, to counter them, confront them, then it will help. And as it is said in Ratnavali, that as long as there's even a few sentient beings remained, may I remain to liberate them, even if I become enlightened. And then it also says that may all the negative results of the sentient beings, negative karmas ripen upon me, and may all the positive fruits fructify upon them. And so this comes through that of the bodhicitta, which gives you the courage, determination, and also to work for others.
아택은 좀버디 숙충시.
And with the understanding of emptiness, what you can do is to reduce that of clinging and to some kind of objective solidity and things. And this also helps to reduce your negative emotions, and that in turn helps to counter or those of the anger and so forth. So our unhappiness is arise due to the extreme self-cherishing attitude and the clinging to some independent existence in things. So we need to reduce these two from within our mind stream. These are the wisdom that have come to us from the Indian masters of the past. So in the past, of course, Indian tradition remained within India more or less, whereas since Mahatma Gandhi set the example to the world with non-violence, it has become a worldwide phenomenon and knowledge. And similarly, the knowledge of mind, about mind and emotions also, which are of Indian origin, can become a world, a knowledge for the world at large. So what we have learned as Tibetans and talk about emotions, mind and so forth have come to us from India, and therefore you should pay more attention to these, the knowledge. So there is the Guru Sharan Singh, the Sikh boy who was debating in Ladakh Model School. So I have some Indian bhikshus amongst friends who study in monastic institutions like Shartse, Garden Shartse Monastery and so forth. We need to facilitate, give facilities and help to them for their pursuit of education in our monastic institutions. And then eventually, if we could establish a Nalanda institution for studying the Nalanda tradition, and that should be, for that the Indians should take responsibility.